Hi friends, today we're going to talk about the big bopper booty bill that passed recently, which was going to be detrimental to every American except the most wealthy. Well, a couple weeks ago, it barely passed in the House, and many Republicans, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, have come out and said that they didn't even read it. Which, to be fair, I didn't know Large Marge even knew how to read, but they just put their stamp of approval on it because old Big Daddy told them that that's what he wanted. So, the cult, that's what you got to do. You just do what Big Daddy tells you. Well, then it went back to the Senate, and they made some changes, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. Some Republicans didn't think it went far enough, if you can believe that. And with the changes that ultimately passed, barely, Shady Vance had to make the tie-breaking vote, which should tell everybody, obviously, that's why we need to flip Congress at the midterms. We got to get some control on this stuff a little bit. Anyway, Big Daddy President Dum Dum signed it on Independence Day, our nation's birthday, simultaneously and symbolically and symbolically codifying the July the 4th as our death day. So, let's talk about a couple of months ago when Doji, the Department of Greedy Embezzlers, Elon's crack team of broccoli-haired Zoomers, they're barely out of high school, were put to the task of finding waste, fraud, and abuse. And it was imperative to cut spending, and Elon promised to cut $2 trillion from the budget. Well, the big bullshit bill is going to add up to $5 trillion to the budget, not including interest. This is the largest upward transfer of wealth in history. Some of the numbers, the lowest 20% of earners will see a reduction of 3% on their taxes, and the top 20% will see an increase of like 2.5%. And those don't seem like big numbers, but that translates to 3% of the lowest earners translates to about $700. Are there any families you know of that are living paycheck to paycheck that can afford to lose an extra $700? Whereas the top 20% are poised to gain at least the top 1 or 2% are poised to gain up to $300,000 a year extra, which they don't need. $700 can destroy a family that's living at poverty level or just above or just below. And the rich won't even notice that they have an extra $300,000 or $50,000 or whatever it ends up being for their level or tax bracket or whatever. But anyway, after virtue signaling and rallying against this thing for the last couple of weeks, senators in red states have been glad handling their rural constituents. And, of course, the spineless Republicans unsurprisingly caved to the MAGA authoritarianism. The Senate, of course, some of the changes they made, the Senate carved out any of the effects going to Alaska, Florida, or Maine, because they needed those votes for it to pass. So those senators are just feckless, spineless sycophants to the MAGA agenda, and they all need to be primaried. They all need to be voted out. Oh, I'm so angry about it. Let's talk about some of the things that are in this big, fugly bill. First off, you have $1 trillion in cuts to Medicaid, which they've been saying for months that Medicaid and Social Security, Medicaid and Social Security, Medicaid and Social Security, that's not going to be cut. We're not going to touch it. We're not going to touch it. And even Doge wasn't allowed to touch it. But here we go. $1 trillion in cuts. Not only is this going to kick 20 million people off of essential health care that they need, it's also going to cause rural hospitals to close, nursing homes that rely on Medicaid to close, or at least start kicking old people out that are going to have to move back home into homes and to families that can't afford to survive the way they are as it is. It's going to leave millions left without necessary safety net for basic health care. And they're also estimating that over 50,000 people will die each year because of the cuts to this thing. SNAP and food stamp programs are all going to be cut by at least a third. So they're getting you from every direction. But you know, there's no tax on tips. There's no tax on overtime. And that, from the beginning, has been just populist bullshit. Those are drops in the buckets. Drops in a bucket of after all of these other cuts. And the no tax on tips only counts if you make under $25,000 and you claim all your tips. And there's just a dozen other stipulations that this isn't going to even affect most of the workers that work in restaurants or in hotels or in the service industry or the hospitality industry. So it's all just smoke and mirrors. Smoke and mirrors. And it's worded in a way that CEOs and wealthy people are going to be able to take advantage of the no tax on tips thing too. And they're going to exploit it just like they did with the PPP payouts during COVID. So many businesses got PPP payouts that didn't deserve it, while other businesses went out of business, went under. Oh, God. Let me get back to this. $1,000 tax bonus for having a baby, which I thought they were against the mythical welfare queens. They didn't want people having babies just so they could get welfare. Well, here we are. $1,000, once again, is just a drop in the bucket for what it costs to survive a baby. So that's all bullshit. They're going to crack down on student loan payments. So isn't that lovely? If you're drowning in debt and now you can't afford food, so there's no food stamps and there's no health care. But let's get away from the poor people for a minute. It's also going to gut green energy tax credits, which means things like EVs and the tax credits you get for having solar panels or windmills. And for some reason, a budget bill has a bunch of crap about immigration. So that's the number one priority of this administration is the immigration. So this bill allows for $300 billion for immigration. $46 billion for his wall, which still makes no sense and doesn't stop people, and it's not even partially done. Oh, don't even get me on the wall. We can make a whole video about the wall. Build the wall. $45 million goes to ICE for 10,000 more agents for his personalized police force, his gazpacho police, and 100,000 new beds, like the ones we see in Alligator Auschwitz that just opened this week. $10 billion each to states that cooperate with this state police to get immigrants out. And $25 billion for his Golden Dome idea, which we saw that in Israel when they started bombing Israel. Their Iron Dome is what they called it because the iron is tough. But it didn't even stop the rockets. So I don't know what they think old Tiny Fingers thing has to be called Golden Dome because everything has to be gold because he's gaudy and that makes him feel rich. But grifter's gonna grift. The Golden Dome. It also increases fees for immigrants. Lovely. Which includes things like court filings and filing for asylum and just the whole process of any immigrants trying to go about becoming citizens legally and doing it the right way. They're just doing everything they can to make it harder for them to do that because this isn't about criminals and this isn't about illegal aliens and illegal immigrants. They don't want any immigrants. Remember, America is for Americans and Americans only. Since when? This country was built on immigrants from the very beginning. Oh my goodness. Anyway, the reason I wanted to make this video, there's other creators out there and there's 100 other videos you could watch that breaks down this big bullshit bill way better than I ever could. But the one thing that nobody's talking about is the reason why I wanted to make this video is the no king or the king's clause that's in there. I say no kings because we just had the protest for no kings. Because that was the whole point of this country was that we don't have a king. And the king clause basically stops the courts from enforcing any of their orders and basically guts all judicial systems power. And the biggest part of it is it works retroactively. So all of the things that have been happening for the last 6 months that we've got just a modicum minimum of hope that the courts are going to be able to stop them. We're not sure that the Supreme Court's going to do what they're supposed to do, because that's been stacked over the last 8 years. But the courts have been doing what they're supposed to do and checking his power. And this part of this bill retroactively negates all of that power. So all of the things that have went towards the courts are just null and void now. He can just do whatever he wants. He just has unchecked power. It's just the consolidation of unchecked power. The other thing that's in this bill is advancement of the massive surveillance state. Everybody that was for Doge said, "What? Elon's a billionaire. Why does he want your information?" Well, now they have access to all your data, all your medical records, all your licensing records, your social security numbers, all of your information. And this bill gives them unchecked power to do what they want with that information. And what they're going to do is they're working with Palantir, the AI company that is it's going to be a surveillance state. They're going to be able to see into your intimate life to know everything you're doing at any given time. So, crossing borders, where the abortion was supposed to be states' rights, but now they're going to crack down on people crossing borders for abortions. There's just, my mind doesn't think evilly like that, so I don't even know what they're going to be able to do. But just think mass surveillance, which it's always been the Republicans rallying against the surveillance state and fuck you, I don't do what you tell me, and you're not going to take my guns and all that stuff. Well, now they can. Now they're going to do whatever they want. So, all right, if praying's your thing, pray for all of us. Pray for the country. Hopefully we'll get through this, and we got to get to the midterms. We got to elect some brave, aggressive people on the left to try to take back some of this control. I don't know how we're going to deal with this bill and the stuff that this is going to do, but it's going to take decades probably for us to get out of this. But hopefully we'll survive. Wish I could be more positive, but here we are. I love you. See you on the next one.